Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today I have the honor to learn from Craig Addy. Craig is a pianist, composer, and artist. Craig has been improvising music since he was a child. Today, he helps others experience their feeling through his music. So Craig, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. But I'm going to open up with a question, and that is,
okay.
What got you started in music? Like, what just kind of you started improvising music when you were a child. What kind of just said, you know what, I'm going to pursue this path?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is quite a little journey. So, I mean, I'm one of four kids, and I'm the youngest, and we were all given many opportunities. My parents were educators and very gifted educators, and my mom actually ran a kindergarten in the basement of our house. So I had a lot of toys.
Awesome.
And a lot of musical instruments and art supplies and all that stuff. But we were all given the opportunity to learn to play the piano. And my two older siblings, they didn't keep going. But my sister, who's just a little bit older than me, and we kept going. And, it wasn't, at first it wasn't like, oh, this is my calling. It was something I really enjoyed as a kid, right? I enjoyed a lot of things. And then I would say when I hit high school, things changed. I was all excited to be at high school. All these new people, all these new teachers, everything's bigger. I get to have dedicated art classes and music classes. Like, this is going to be great. And it wasn't. The specter of bullying arrived on the scene. And it kind of caught me by surprise. And I tried a few things to stop it, and it didn't work. And, it got to be so I was just going to school with, this pit in my stomach and this anxiety and fear. And I think the thing about bullying that's worse, at least was for me, was the embarrassment and the humiliation. So I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. I just didn't want anyone to know. And what happened at the same time as this was happening was my piano teacher gave me a Chopin nocturne to learn. And it was kind of the first really serious adult piece of classical music she'd given me.
Yeah.
But, it was slow, it was sad, it had this peaceful section in the middle. And in that piece, I found all there was for me to express the pain that I was experiencing. And so it was, in a way, it's dramatic to say it, but it kind of saved me. It was an outlet for me, and it kind of helped me deal with that difficult time. And then at the end of the year, my piano teacher had this big, she had a lot of students. She had this big recital, and I played the Chopin nocturne, and people were moved. They came up to me and said that was so moving. So that's when I got it, that it wasn't healing just for me, it was healing for other people as well. So that's when the deal was sealed. That experience of my life and what that piece did for me and what I saw it did for others. So that's how I got into music. I was also very good at art. I mean, I won the art awards. I was encouraged to pursue that. But that thing with the music, that's what caused the trajectory for me being a musician.
I think that's so cool. I really do. And I mean, thank you for sharing that too. I mean, I know, especially an experience like that, it can be hard to share. And I think it's cool that everyone has different, I would say, art forms that they look towards when they need kind of that relief from stress or whatever it may be. Like in your case, it was music. I find actually, my dad's similar as well. He finds that in music. And then some people, right, they like to draw, or some people go and write. And then I find mine actually in comedy. I like to go watch, it's weird as it sounds, I go and watch comedians. And that's my stress reliever, like art form. But I'm kind of curious because I never really viewed myself as an artist, but why do you think art tends to be the place where we kind of relieve stress, would you say?
I think because I think, on a really basic level, is because it expresses our humanity.
There you
You know,
go.
it's about what it is to be a human.
I love that. And it focuses on the beautiful parts of what goes
And
on in
the
life.
ugly parts.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it expresses all of it.
No, it's true. So kind of take me then through what happened after high school. I mean, you played this piece. Now it's like, okay, now what? I got to make a career out of this.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a funny little order or sequence of events. So there was something that happened before that that's going to become significant later in my career. So I should probably let you know that. So when I was still quite young, I'm still not quite sure how old I was. Maybe I was 8 or 9. My mom bought a grand piano. You know, we had upright pianos before then, but my mom bought this beautiful grand piano. And my mom was a very good pianist too. And she particularly liked Chopin. And she would be playing that, or she'd be playing a Schubert. And being a kid, you know, I just got into the habit of every once in a while crawling under the piano while she was playing. And I would hang out under the piano while she was playing this beautiful music. And you know, when, I don't know, I think a lot of kids do this. They would make forts, indoor
Yes.
forts. They would put tables up on their sides and get the blankets and drape them over. And, you know, you'd make this, you know, secret password, the whole thing. And being under the piano was like a little bit like being in a kind of a fort, because you were kind of immersed in this bubble of sound. And somehow it just like contained you, and it was so immersive. So that was something that happened when I was younger. That's important.
Okay. No, I think I know a little bit about that.
Yeah. So high school comes along, and I finish high school, and I know I want to do music. So it took a couple years before I went to UBC music school, but you know, I was practicing a lot. So I went to UBC, and my focus was on composition and playing the piano. And it was a very traditional musical education. Like, there was no improvising, there was no jazz, there was nothing like that. It was just, you know, traditional classical repertoire. And I loved it and everything, but there was no focus on the improvising there. It was just something I did for myself, you know, along the road. And I finished my music degree, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Honestly, I wasn't sure. I mean, I was really good at working with singers, playing with singers. And so maybe you should be a professional accompanist. And I didn't really want to do that because I wasn't really a great sight reader. You have to be a good sight reader to throwing music at you all the time.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, it's just going to be a lot of work. Not that I don't mind working, but kind of stressful work, right? And so I didn't do that. So I was kind of this holding pattern. And my dad, you know, as I mentioned, he was an educator. He retired early. It's shocking now to think he was about the age I am now. And he and my mom started up a business writing educational books, and I did the graphic design and the typesetting. So I did that part of it.
Yeah.
And also I designed some beautiful alphabets for school classrooms, and we hand screen printed those.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was very involved in that for a while, and I was doing music on the side. I sang in a little quartet, and I did a little playing, you know, so I was just happy doing my stuff. It was all creative stuff. And that went on for quite a while until I was in my mid-40s, and then my dad did retire, and I was stuck doing all of it. Then now I had to do the sales and the marketing, and I got increasingly unhappy because what had happened, it was kind of invisible to me. It edged all of the music out. I wasn't doing any more music.
Yes.
And I was in a networking group, and there was this business coach in the networking group. And he kept on saying to the other members, come for a free session with me so you can see how I work, you know, and then you can revert people to me. So I did. And I went and I sat on this guy's couch. And, you know, I tell you, 15 minutes in, I broke into a pool of tears. I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore. He was a good coach.
That is.
You know, and that's when I went back to music. So I returned to music at that point. And I had a good friend who was at music school with me, Howard Meadows. He was a clarinetist. And we just started doing like weddings and events and stuff like that, having a great time. And then one day he came into our rehearsal room. He was usually there first, but I was there first one time. And he came in, and I was improvising at the piano. Like, as I mentioned, I did this for myself.
Yes.
He didn't even know I could do this. Wow. And he said, what is that? says, oh, it's just an improvisation I'm making up. And his kind of jaw dropped. He says, this sounds like a composition. I would not have known that was an improvisation. And so Howard is kind of like a big brother. He says, okay, you have to start doing this during our concerts, blah, 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 you know, and you just, the cat was out of the bag. And so I would sneak it in, you know, because we were doing weddings and stuff like that. It's kind of like, you know,
most
handful of people listening, you know.
Yeah.
So it was
kind
a
of the
great
background
place.
music.
Yeah, it was a great place to test it out. And I just started doing more and more of it. And finally, Howard and I, because he could play along with me, he just had an incredible ear. We got to the point where we did entire concerts that were improvised.
Wow.
We would go into this beautiful church in downtown Vancouver with this amazing acoustic, and we would play for 75 minutes. We just improvised for 75 minutes.
How do you improvise for that long?
Well, we kind of do it's kind of like a freestyle improvisation. So, you know, like jazz improvisers, you know, most of the time they have like a chart, you know, a chord chart, you know, it's based on a song of some sort. This is all like created in the moment. So I don't even know what the chord progression is going to be. I just start playing, and then a progression emerges, and I repeat it and modify it, and Howard picks up on it, and that's how we do it.
Wow. That is, I mean, 75 minutes, that is just to sit down and then just start playing and not really know how it's going to end. How does that even happen, man? Like, just...
It's kind of like almost like meditating, you know?
Gotcha.
Because we called it Music Oasis, and the whole point was it for people just to come in. We did it during lunch hour. Just sit and, you know, relax and kind of take them off into another land. We never advertised or promoted it well. Like, there was only ever a handful of people there, but people who came just loved it. So that happened. But here's the other thing that happened that really led to what I'm doing now. So early on, this was before we were doing the full concerts. I had read this book, the Piano Shop on the Left Bank, I think it's called. And it's a really, really delightful book. And it's about this little piano shop on the left bank in Paris. And this guy fixes pianos. And really, it's about the stories of the people attached to the pianos. So it's got all these colorful stories about the owners. But there was this one chapter. I turned the page. I still remember turning the page. I think it was chapter 21. I don't know why I think it's 21, but it's anyhow, this chapter.
Yeah.
And the title is in big letters, Fazioli. I went, oh, what's that? Well, Fazioli is this new piano made in Italy that's kind of hit the world by storm. And they're just, you know, after reading about this piano, I just went, oh, I have to play one of those. They just sound like magical. And, but there aren't any around. I thought I'll have to go to Europe or something to try one, you know, because they're rare. So Howard is walking down Broadway in Vancouver, and he sees this new store being prepared. And he looks in the window on the back wall, Fazioli.
Yeah.
A new piano store. So they opened, and I went in there like a flash when they were open. And you know how when you imagine something's going to be really great?
Yeah.
But it's totally different, but better?
Yes, I know exactly what you...
Yeah, that's what Fazioli was like. So, you know, they had like 4 or 5 of them in the show, and then one of them was this 9-foot concert grand. There was one other pianist in there, and he was playing the 9-foot concert Fazioli at some point. And I still don't know to this day why this happened, but I looked across the room and I saw him playing, this guy I didn't even know, and I thought about being that child crawling under my mom's grand piano. So sometimes I get playful and goofy, and there was no one else in the store, so I walked up to this guy and said, just keep playing, I'm going to crawl under the piano. So he obliged. He just kept playing, and I crawled under this piano, and it's a 9-foot concert grand, so I could lie lengthwise under it. And I'm remembering my childhood memories of my mom playing, and that's great. But I'm also like, I can feel my whole body resonating with the sound of the piano. It's like getting a massage with sound. So I go home and I keep thinking about this. I don't know, 2-3 weeks. But I wonder what other people think of this. So I had 3 friends over, and they took turns getting under my grand piano, which is my mom's grand piano, the same one I used to lie under.
Oh, that's cool.
And I improvised for 5 to 10 minutes for each of them, and they were like, "This is not at all like listening to a piano from across the room. This is like a whole new world." And one of them said, "You should do it as a business, and you should call it Under the Piano." Her name was Catherine. Still talk to Catherine all the time. And so that's how my offering of Under the Piano came to being. So that was 14 years ago. And I've had over 850 people lie under my piano, individuals or couples. And they come to my studio and they share about themselves. This is the other piece of it that's unique. They share about their lives with me. The good, the bad, whatever they want. I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I don't give any advice or force anything. They just share what they want. But some people share really, really personal stuff. And then the individual or the couple gets under my piano. It's really, I've got a foam mattress and silk sheets and cushions. It's like, it's very luxurious, nice and comfortable. And they get under there, and then I spontaneously improvise a concert for about 40 minutes, which is all inspired by their stories. And so you get this immersive 40-minute sound massage, but you also get this journey of your life being given back to you. And what's powerful about it when it's really impactful for people is that sometimes people don't have the words for what they're dealing with, and music can get to that. And what I see happen so often is they come out kind of transformed, and now they can talk about it. They can put words to it.
Weird how it works like that. Like, you almost need to like sit in that silence and just take in the things around you, the sound. Like you said, the sound massage, it relieves a lot of things. And maybe some of the things we're thinking about, like we get so focused on something, but then it kind of just calms us down and says, okay, like let's think about this realistically. So, I mean, you've had 1,500 clients, you said, that have gone under?
850 have, I would say 1,000, because I started also doing group sessions where I would have people come. And they would each share a story, and then the person who shared the story would get under the piano. Usually someone else in the room would really resonate with the story, so they would as well. So when you add those, it's been at least 1,000 people.
Wow. So I'm kind of curious then, for the first one, were you kind of then nervous? Like, okay, I'm just going to start playing your story?
I was already really well into improvising by that time with Howard. So there was no nervousness about that. And, I experimented a few times with people I knew.
Gotcha. Just
to determine that it was a uniformly pleasurable and powerful experience. And it was. So, but when I do my improvising, I don't have time to worry or be nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that's beautiful about improvising that I think is a real missing in classical training is that there's only now. Because nothing's been like when you're playing a difficult classical piece, you're playing away and you're kind of having thoughts like, okay, the difficult part's coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that the top-notch performers have mastered that issue, but we have that sort of thing because we know it's coming. So you get to that part, and either a success or not, and then you're evaluating what happened.
Yeah.
So you're not present to the now, but when you're improvising, none of that is predetermined. So there's really only one place to be, and that's like right now.
And I would agree. That's even just for life in general. Sometimes we get so caught up, right? Like, oh, what's my future going to look like? And I mean, it's in the back of all our minds. But then when it actually does come and you actually act on a goal, or you start working towards something, then you're constantly evaluating and saying, man, why did I do it this way? Why did I do it? And you're like tweaking that. But sometimes it's just nice to be like, all right, let's just enjoy right now. It's a great moment. Like that moment when you get off a plane, when you're going on vacation, it's like, okay, who cares about what's going to happen tomorrow? who cares what's already happened? Let's just have a great time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great way to live your life as well. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we live in a world, I was just hearing someone talk about this. They are actually a couple of neuroscientists and doctors. We live in a world where we're so scattered. It's so hard to be focused now.
Yes.
There's like, social media, okay, I'll give that 10 seconds. I'll give that 10 seconds. I mean, I do it myself too,
Yes, we're all guilty.
And that's another thing that's available when I improvise, is just to be so focused and not distracted. And I think I give that to people too when they have that experience. And we need more of that. We need to find more ways to simply allow ourselves to be focused.
So this is something I've talked about with other guests, and it's on the lines of focus. But could you kind of illustrate? I mean, this is kind of my understanding is tunnel vision is like you kind of are just ignoring outside opportunities, whereas focus is you're focusing in on I guess in this case, a present moment, or focusing in on a task that you want to get done right now. How could we kind of, I guess, one, determine, are we just having that tunnel vision right now, or are we actually focusing on something that we're setting out to do?
Well, if tunnel vision you mean, do you mean, for example, if you're kind of scrolling through reels on Facebook or Instagram, where you're just kind of going, do the next one, the next one, and the next one?
I guess, I mean, that would fall under that. I mean, more like kind of keeping your options open. So, I mean, I'm guilty of this too. Like, I'll get so focused on something that I'll just ignore some other things that I probably should be focusing on. How can we kind of determine, okay, am I focusing on something, or is it just kind of this?
Oh, I have no idea.
No worries. And
I think I have thoughts. I don't know if they're good ones.
No, go ahead. No.
So being focused on something, I think is very intentional. But ignoring things is, I don't know. My thoughts are not going anywhere useful.
No worries. So, I mean, I guess I can kind of see where you're talking about social media. Like, it's not like we're still doing it, I guess, but is it the best
There's a mindlessness to it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's it. So what would be some of your tips then to kind of develop, that sense of focus, or, ignore, like, the opposite of what social media is guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I think finding times just to slow down. I've taken to going for a walk every morning now, which is really helped me a lot. My mind is still doing all this and that, but there's something, there's something about it that gets rid of the kind of the anxiety, almost, that this constant moving, flitting from this to that, to this to that. There's this underlying anxiety that it builds up for me. Certainly playing the piano is
the best.
A place I go to just to be focused. I'm exploring the idea of just making sure I turn my phone off 2 hours before I go to bed. I have a ways to go with that one.
It's hard, right? Because it does give you that hit of, from a science look at it, it does give you that hit of dopamine, and it's like, gotta keep going. But all of a sudden you look at the time and you're like, whoa, that's an hour just went by. And I think kind of on the lines you were getting at, where you need to slow down, it's like maybe our brains are just not fast enough to keep up with that information, and it needs time to actually digest what we just saw. And when we're just overloading it with too much, I guess, information, then all of a sudden you just get overwhelmed and you get anxious and depressed and things that we don't really want. I don't know, would that kind of fall along the lines, would you say, of what you're thinking?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious. I mean, you seem pretty passionate about, music. And I mean, since a young age, you've loved it. if there's someone out there right now that's, they're struggling to kind of find, all right, what is it that I actually like doing, or what is my passion? How would you help them kind of find that?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there's an argument that passion isn't found, it's created.
I like that.
And if that's the case, then you might look at, we have aptitudes for things. There's certain things that we just seem to have natural abilities at doing. I would look at some of those. What can I do with this? That would be one thing I suggest. They've done a lot of studies, with musicians where they've tried to figure out why some are at such a high level and some aren't. And they did a study in Europe somewhere, I think it was Sweden or something, where they studied violinists and they studied the kids and they kind of put them into groups. There was like the ones that seemed to be like the prodigies.
Yeah.
And then they had the ones that were very accomplished, and then they had ones that were kind of mediocre, and then they had the ones that were just like, you shouldn't be doing this. But there was no magic in the end. The top two levels just practiced way more. It was as simple as that. It was all came down to who practiced the most. And then they try to figure out, well, what about these prodigies versus the next ones? They all seem to be practicing the same amount. Why are the ones who are the cream of the crop better than the others? They started earlier. They had a couple of years on the others. And so the point of that is that, okay, if it's just a matter of practicing, everybody could be really good at something. But I think where we get into trouble, if you don't want to do it, it's got to be something that you have some affinity for. Like, this feels like something that I like, I think that's a place to look. Find something you like doing that you're willing to put the effort into. And I find the more you put into something, the more interesting it becomes, the more passionate I become about it. Have you had that experience when you just really get into something?
Yeah, I actually was just going to add on to that too. To answer your question, yes, I have. I think you become more in tune with the fine details that other people don't really see. I mean, have you ever talked to a car mechanic, for example? Then all of a sudden they start spouting off stuff and you're like, what this makes no sense, man. But then when you actually take the time to study, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? Just definitions for words for starters. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa. And your world's opened up to a whole new world, really. And I mean, that was really, for me, it was I mean, social media can actually be used for good as well.
Absolutely.
But I found this one podcast and they talk about they bring on brilliant engineers and stuff. I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know this stuff existed. And I found it I never loved math in school. The teachers just how it was delivered could have been better. And, that's partially probably my fault as well. I could have been more receptive because I was definitely causing problems. But I found that, wow, maybe math's not so bad. It was never explained in a way that made sense to me. I'm like, well, actually, I kind of like this stuff.
I think that's the biggest disconnect with math is what the hell is it for?
Exactly. No, and that, I mean, I've actually had a guest on that he was a mathematician. I was kind of at first, I'm like, this is bizarre. Why would you choose math? This makes every kid I talked to in school, they're like, oh, anything but math, please. But then how he talked about it, it was actually in a creative type of form. He's like, oh, so we had this problem and I was trying to figure out, and he never used numbers and it made sense to me. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool. But yeah. And yeah, so I think it's also being open to hearing other things too. And sometimes we get so closed-minded. And I guess back to the tunnel vision, that's kind of what I was getting at, is we get that closed mind. It's like, well, I'm not going to touch that. I'm not good at this. I'm not, interest in that and all that. And I think to add on to that, I think as well that putting in the work, I mean, it's what Malcolm Gladwell's need 10,000 hours to be exceptional at something. So you just gotta be patient with yourself. And that's something as well. How would you develop the patience and have patience with yourself during those rough times where you're just feeling so inadequate and you just are terrible at something?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that's when your love for something comes to the rescue. If you really love what you're doing, that certainly is what got me through rough patches with my music when it just didn't seem to be progressing. My technique, there would be these pieces I'd be practicing, and there would be these passages that you would practice it for hours and hours, and it would almost seem like it would get worse,
Mm-hmm.
But that persistence is really what matters. And sometimes knowing to leave something alone for a while is important too, because that's what I found out about those things. Okay, just leave it for a couple weeks, because our minds are amazing. They do things, in the background, and I would come back and I could play it. So, but yeah, that love for what you're doing is, that's why I came back to it.
It's a key part there. And I like that you said that you fall into your passion too, but then when those moments get really hard, it forces you, I would say, to ask those questions. Okay, why am I seriously doing this? And then for the people that are just in it, maybe for the glory, the money, the whatever other motivations it may be, it's like, okay, is this really what you want? Like, is this an even exchange for what you're willing to put in? And that's where it kind of weeds out some of the people that are like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for you, man. And for others, it's like, what? I love this. Is it gonna work? I have no idea, right? But at the end of the day, it works.
Yeah.
So, man, I think this is so cool what you do. So I'm gonna ask the intelligent question of the day, and a lot of people, they have this fear, I would say, that maybe they're not going to be like good at it, or kind of that anxiety when I'm still impressed that you can just go up there and play. But for others, it may be that they have this kind of anxiousness or just fear of like, oh my gosh, am I going to do this right? Or kind of a perfectionism mindset. How would you kind of look to eliminate that, or just kind of go easy on yourself?
Well, that's a tough one. I think a lot of us have that, what we call the imposter syndrome. Like we never think we're good enough, we're going to be good enough, and we're going to get found out. I have my moments of that too. I think perfectionism is a real nasty one. And what I've noticed, that if you try to be perfect, you've lost the game. What I've noticed when I improvise is that I have moments of perfection, but I'm not trying to be perfect. They arise out of being so present in the moment, so attuned to what you're doing, that lets the perfection show up. So I do spend a lot of time, this is one of the reasons why I don't teach a lot, but I do teach a bit, mostly adults. Most of the time is dealing with that whole issue. Like they shut themselves down because they're so frustrated that they can't do it perfectly and they want it to be perfect. And that's why I like to teach the improvising, because there is no right note. There's notes that sound better than others.
Mm-hmm.
And, I say, well, if that note doesn't sound good, guess what? You're just a half step or a couple steps away from one that does. So all you have to do is move to it.
Wow. That's the intelligent answer of the day, but that is so profound too. That, man, yeah, I'm a loss of words for that one. I'm not even kidding. That, because I to add on as well, I find that in my life as well. Like sometimes the biggest critic in my life, it's not anyone, it's myself. Like I will just beat the crap out of myself. It's like, why did you do it this way? And then other people are like, hey, you're pretty good at this. I'm like, nope, I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And kind of just being present in that moment and realizing, okay, like let's just focus on what we need to do right now can help.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. And what was one other thing? It's gone now.
Oh, no worries. If you remember it, please let me know. Well, Craig, thank you for coming on today. If people want to, book a session with you, reach out to you, find you, all that fun stuff, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to put in is because of COVID, everything I was doing in person came to a stop for quite a while. And I used to play in hospitals and stuff a lot too. And that all came to a stop. Everything came to a stop.
Yeah.
So I got creative and I started doing some online live streaming and things like that. And I discovered that I could do the storytelling aspect of Under the Piano online as well. You don't get the sensory experience, but you do get your story coming back to you, even though it's online. So I now do online versions of Under the Piano as well, which is great because now I have a global reach. You don't have to fly to Vancouver, Canada to have an Under the Piano session. So the place to find me, there's actually two places. You can go to underthepiano.ca, not com, ca, or you can go to craigaddy.com. Yeah, the underthepiano.ca is all about Under the Piano. craigaddy.com has Under the Piano and the other things that I do as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Craig, for coming on today. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, as you can tell, that is Craig Addy. He's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. I challenge you guys, if anything spoke to you today, to reach out to him, book a session with him. I'm sure he'd be happy to do that with you. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up with you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.